So the fact that my patients were in tune with their mouth, now they wanted whitening. Now they wanted some, cosmetic bonding and stuff like that. So it's kind of like aligners are like the gateway to more fun dentistry. But at the very baseline, it's just really good from an oral health perspective.
This is Growth in Dentistry, a dental intelligence podcast, where we ask the question, what does growth in dentistry mean to you? I'm Steve Jensen, a dated dental nerd and your host.
Welcome everyone to another episode of the Growth in Dentistry podcast. Super excited for our guest today. This is actually a topic that I haven't hit yet. I've talked a ton with a lot of guests about how to take the practice, make it more profitable, how to think differently about the business. But the way we're going to discuss general dentistry and how I think about my dental practice today is going to be totally different than any conversation I've had before. Now, before I jump in and introduce our guest, I want to give a huge shout out to the marketing team at Dental Intelligence. They sponsor this podcast and help me produce it week after week after week, which is a ton of work. So I'm super grateful for that team. And as always, they have a special offer for listeners of this podcast. If you'll do a demo of Dental Intelligence, they're releasing lots of cool new features. They've got a really cool like AI scorecards assistant. So if you're not data savvy, you can literally just ask this AI bot about your data and it will give you answers like, hey, here's what you're doing well and here's what you're struggling with and could work on. What else is cool and new? They're getting ready to release a new integration with Dentist Ascend. So if you're using Ascend and you haven't loved what you're getting and you want to look for other options, we're going to have an option for you here soon. So like I said, they'll give you a $50 gift card just for doing a demo of the software, which is super cool of that team. Okay, with that out of the way, I want to introduce my guest for today, Dr. Avi Patel. Now, he is in Austin. He graduated from NYU Dental School, and he is just one of the coolest humans that you'll meet. So you'll get to know him better as he and I chat. But his big focus right now is and you can like clarify if you want like a more fancy title, but he educates on clear aligners in dentistry. So that's going to be kind of the main focus today is how do we think about the profitability of our business, but not even just that, how do we think about our lifestyle and the way we're engaging with our community as a dentist and as a professional. And I just love Dr. Patel's take on this topic specifically. So welcome, Dr. Patel, to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Pumped to be here. Yeah, when we were chatting before, I know we hit we hit a couple things where you wanted to just record that session in and of itself, but I'm excited we're doing this. I'm happy to dive in.
So let's start just by giving the audience a little bit of just background on yourself. Why'd you get into dentistry? Why NYU? And then how'd you end up in Austin? And let's get that far.
Yeah. So for me growing up, I always, honestly, I wanted to be a basketball player. I was 5'10" in middle school. I thought, I was destined for the NBA. Favorite player was Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
Got to high school. I went from the tallest to probably one of the shortest or like average. I mean, I'm 5'10", so I'm not even like that short, but yeah, that's when my parents kind of smiled and laughed, Indian parents. They're like, looks like you're gonna need to go into, medical, dental, or be like a lawyer or something. And so I'm like, all right. So I went up to New York and I shadowed my uncle. He's a dentist, and I realized honestly, like I was just drawn to the way he was living his life. Like, he was working a couple days a week, vacationing, golfing, has 3 kids, nice car, helping people, like all that. So I'm like, this is pretty cool. So I shadowed him, and then one of the one of the nights I was there, he had a dinner party, so a bunch of his friends were there. I was talking to one of his friends. He was a neurosurgeon, and he was like, "Look, it's like looks like you have to make a decision. Do you want to go to medical school or do you want to go to dental school?" So I'm like, I was thinking about it. We were talking, and then I'm like, kind of looking around, and everyone else is like kind of having a blast, and he's talking to me, this like 16-year-old. I'm like, by the way, like, why aren't you, with everybody else? And he's like, I'm on call tonight. And I'm like, ah. And it was like a Friday night, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I want to like be on call when it's like a Friday night. So it sounds like, very small, but that to me kind of was like, I didn't want to go through like so much more schooling. This is just like the brutally honest version of why. So it's a very like process of elimination type of thing. But I saw dentistry honestly as a profession where, like, I call it the three pillars. Like I could have time, make good money, and feel fulfilled by helping people. So that's what drew me in. Um, and then so applying to dental schools, I grew up in Florida. I wanted to get out of Florida. So I applied to a bunch of Northeast schools, wanted to get into a city. New York was definitely on my radar. NYU, heard really good things. Just from what I heard, you just get a lot of good clinical experience. And I feel like that would be important and a good thing to go off of. I didn't really have any thoughts on specializing or anything. I wanted to go somewhere where I could, learn a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and so I got in, came out, and my whole thing is I didn't do a GPR, I didn't do a residency because I just wanted real world experience. I was like, look, I'm gonna have to be in the real world one day, so why not just go for it now? I kind of saw a residence. Honestly, again, this is like maybe silly, but I just saw a residency. I'm like, oh, that means I have to like work in a hospital. And like, that's literally why I didn't want to go be a physician. So if I have to go to a hospital, there's a way to skip it, I'll skip it. So, yeah, I started off working in Connecticut. I was in a couple different practices and,
What part of Connecticut? Stanford?
yeah, so I was living in Manhattan and taking the train up to Stamford.
Yeah,
Um,
cool area.
yeah. So I was doing that. And then, 6 months in, like I got let go from my job, and it was mainly because the practice just wasn't busy enough. I also think that, as a dentist, like I don't think my skills on like the patient conversion, you know, treatment planning side, I don't really think they were strong enough to be successful. So this is where I was getting like that real world experience. And yeah, and so I kind of, I mean, I worked in a bunch of practices first couple years out, and I was always like looking to grow, looking to learn. And they tell you when you come out of school, like, find a mentor, lean on them, and that's the best way. But the reality is like there's not mentors just hanging around. Like they're all business owners, they're dentists, they have, they're trying to also
Uh,
run a practice. Like they're not trying to spend time mentoring. So
yeah.
yeah, I just wish somebody told me like, hey, you can look for a mentor, but you may not find one. So you got to kind of like take it upon yourself to go get the education. So
I have
um
to interject and say one thing just about mentorship because I have kids come and ask me all the time, like, hey, like I need more mentors in my life. Like I just want to like learn from the best. And I think the idea that they are visualizing with a mentor is someone that will like sit next to them and spend just hours and hours and hours like talking back and forth. And one of the realizations I had, this is probably, I don't know, 10 years ago, I started to get into podcasts. I mean, like most people, I think, in their like late 20s, 30s. And I had this like aha moment when I realized, man, like we live in the coolest time when you could never meet another person, like someone who's the absolute best in their field, but they could technically be your mentor in the more like actual sense of it. Like the reason why you mentor is you want to like sit there and just kind of like listen to the people who are really good at the craft you're trying to get better at, like talk and explain it and like observe them. And with like YouTube and podcasts and Instagram and TikTok, like all these like video content and audio content options, like people have been so cool to share so much information. So I just want to like, I want listeners to hear that. Like, hey, if you're sitting there thinking like, man, like my life would dramatically change if I had a mentor, like the most brilliant business minds can be your mentor if you just sit down and like, okay, I'm going to commit to starting to listen to their podcast hours and hours. Or maybe in like this scenario, like you listen to Dr. Patel and we're going to get into the clear aligner stuff. And you're like, man, if I just had a mentor that could like really talk me through the clear aligner game, then like you can get that without even having to like necessarily be like side by side with someone. So sorry, back to your story. You wanted mentorship, you were
no,
struggling to
you're
find it.
I want to just pour into that just for a sec.
Cool.
Yeah, like I tell my wife this all the time. I'm like, how cool is it that like now that I'm kind of, I've entered this entrepreneur side, this phase of my career where it's like there's no playbook on this, but all I need to do is just listen to people who are successful. And it's the cool thing, and I'm sure you've noticed this, is the more you listen to super successful people, either in your industry or out of the industry, they're all saying a version of the same thing, right? Consistency, do the boring work, like all that stuff. And it's like, cool. Like if everybody's saying this, I should probably just do that. And then like over time, you know what I mean? You gain the skills. But yeah, like there is no more excuse for not having access. We have the most access to people than ever before. So yeah, and I've got a YouTube channel and everything as well, where that's like kind of my way of giving back and in the sense of providing that content for people. Um, but yeah, where were we at in the
So
story?
you were you were commuting up to Connecticut and
Oh
just like
yeah.
feeling like you had mentorship and yeah, that's where we were at.
Yeah. So, you know, in between different practices, constantly going into each one with like a positive outlook and like a goal of something that I wanted to learn. So early on, I was like, I noticed like, dang, I suck at treatment planning and case acceptance. So then I was like trying to take these different, you know, courses to learn how to do that and communicate. Then it was like, all right, I want to get really efficient and good at filling. So I did that. And then it was crowns and extractions, and you slowly start leveling up. Um, and then I hit a point during the pandemic where I was just burnt out. Like I was just so burnt out on the bread and butter where
Mhm.
I was like, there's no way I can do this for the rest of my career. Like this is not, I'm just not enjoyable. I don't feel like I'm making a difference. Like those three things of like time, money, and fulfillment. Like I didn't have any of them. Like I didn't have time. I was working 6 days a week, wasn't really making that much money compared to like the student loans and whatnot. And then I didn't feel fulfilled. I was like, I'm just like drilling in people's teeth. And like, it didn't seem like it was making a difference. And so, we moved down to Texas. I joined a DSO there. And then this DSO, they were unique. They were small, but they were like, hey, we are going to let you guys have access to whatever you want. So if you want to grow with implants, aligners, whatever it is, here's the resources, knock yourself out. And so by then I'm like, cool, I'm not going to let this opportunity slip.
Cool.
There was a webinar, Dr. Christina Blocker was giving it. She teaches about clear aligners. She's with Invisalign. And so I was like, she's like, hey, if you ever need help on a case, let me know. So I leaned on her and I started doing aligners, and I was like, hey, can you just like help me? Like, what do I need to know? What do I need to refer? And how can I just do this in a very simple way so that way I can help my patients? I started 50 cases in my first 6 months. I didn't think that was a big deal, but all the reps started to like flood
Yeah.
into the office, and they're just like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I'm just like talking to my patients about it. Again, this was like a insurance based blue collar state employee practice. Like this was not an aesthetic cosmetic practice at all. But I was just approaching the conversation from the oral health sides, and that resonated with patients. And so now, very quickly, I am now making more money than I've ever made. I'm only working 4 days a week, and I'm
Yeah,
actually being a part of.
I was just doing the math, by the way, because if fellow dentists who kind of know what you charge for clear aligners are probably thinking like, okay, like how many is that a month? So that's a little over 8 cases a month you were getting started in those first 6 months. And then I don't know if you remember, like what were you charging then? Like I'm
I think
thinking
we were
about,
charging like 4,800.
okay, yeah, so 4,800. And this is like top line revenue, 40 grand. But yeah, that's like a good chunk of your,
I was I was
goal.
doing like 100K in overall production a month, and I was barely doing restorative.
Like divide
Like,
that by 16 working days. We're talking about like 2,500 a day in your like production goals that you're knocking off just from these clear liner starts. Like that's pretty sweet.
yeah,
The first month.
yeah, it was awesome. And there was
Like
no
there
like
are,
external
for
marketing.
context, like I know for sure there are associates out there who consistently will have like 2,500, $3,000 production days, so
Yeah, but you're doing like like right? Like a couple
yeah,
crowns, bunch of fillings. Like
billing,
you have
yeah,
to do a lot.
yeah,
So it was totally cool because it changed the way that I practiced in the sense where like if I got an aligner start, there was almost no pressure in the sense of like I wasn't thinking about what do I need to diagnose. Like the way and dentist to dentist, like any dentist listening, like when the month is going and it's been slow, like you're not necessarily pushing procedures on people, but like you feel the stress because you're like, dang, like we've been, if you've got goals, like you've been missing goals. And so it was just a really nice way to like take that pressure off while still helping the patients, right? And I think that was the coolest thing that aligners did, is they were a very profitable and productive procedure for me. It brought that spark back, and that's where I just leaned into it. And so it's funny because while I was doing this, the other dentist that I was working with at the group, much older, about 20 years on me, and he was like, because at the DSO, everyone can see everyone's like production numbers, and he's just like, dude, he's like, you are crushing it, but like you're never on the clinic floor. He's like, what is going on? And I'm like, he's like, you're just always on your computer. And I'm like, oh yeah, I just started like a bunch of Invisaligns, and
Dr.
he's
Patel's
like,
making TikToks in the back, getting.
yeah, he was just like, what is going on? And I'm like, yeah, man, this is what I'm doing. And then so he's like, huh, I never really did that. And so I started teaching him. He had success. And then that's when like the next passion of mine kind of was born, of this education side. And I think from there, I started to want to do more of it. Proposed to the group that I kind of do it in-house for them. They just wanted me to produce, which is totally fine. Everything happens for a reason. And my wife was like, you should just start consulting on the side. And so that's when I started working with doctors one-on-one, practice owners, and basically teaching them how to implement this from A to Z. And it's brand agnostic. That is when I started posting on social media and making reels. And and then that started to catch momentum. People were interested, not just from all over, honestly, the world. Like people from South Africa were like DMing me wanting help. And I'm like, whoa, this is cool. So then I created a course, had an online course. And then that was the focus. And then kind of doing both practicing and education, splitting my time, and then eventually going all in on the education piece, because I just saw the opportunity. Like the gap in the industry is so big, because this procedure it's the fastest growing procedure in dentistry. It's got a 30% compound annual growth rate projected through 2030. So there's no other procedure that is growing at this rate. And it's all because of the marketing that Align and Smile Direct Club has poured into the general population. So everybody listening here has patients in their practice that want this procedure. They just don't know if they qualify for it because you're not talking about it. And that's the thing, is like dentists think like, oh, I want to do a new procedure, we got to start marketing for it. And it's like, no, you need to first understand it, know how to do it, and then start talking to the existing patients, because you can actually start cases without putting a dime into marketing. So that's kind of the philosophy there. But
Well,
but
let
yeah.
me ask this question. I imagine some people who are listening may have, we could kind of take this two directions. Some people may have like started to dabble but haven't like really gotten started, and some maybe just haven't, for whatever reason. Maybe some of the common reasons might be like, oh, I just want to like leave the specialty work to the specialist. You might want to address a few of those things, like why clear aligners at a general practice? Is it important, clinically, to set kind of some boundaries for yourself on what you try to tackle and what you don't? And why clear aligners?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first piece of like taking away from specialists or leaving it to them. So when you really look, and I totally understand that sentiment. I talk to specialists all the time about this. And what it is it's mainly focusing on adult ortho, right? So today, most general dentists are just referring teenagers or completely wild stuff to the orthodontist,
Yeah.
right? Everybody in between, the adults with like the moderate, like they're not even talking about it. So like if you think about the opportunity and just the patients who we are neglecting, right? Because as providers, as a general dentist, like it is our job to identify, diagnose, treatment plan, and then either treat or refer.
Yep.
We're not even diagnosing this. So
Mm.
it's all undiagnosed stuff. And so to your point, yes, when you're starting, the biggest thing that I see with doctors is just they don't have any confidence with case selection. And so I do believe strongly that general dentists should not be taking on advanced cases. And then just to kind of, share what kind of are some guidelines on like what you should be referring. you should be referring class 3 cases, all of them. Don't even try to touch them. Bilateral posterior cross bites. Like I said, teenagers, deep bites that are greater than 4 millimeters. And I think if you can stay away from those cases, the rest of them you can kind of take on a case by case basis. I've got a bunch of resources that I'm, happy to share, where I go over all that stuff. But that's kind of the mindset. And to your point of like, I'm just gonna let the orthodontist kind of deal with it. If you don't talk about this and notify the patient, they're never gonna, like, they're not gonna go. Like, patients don't know, oh, I need to go to the orthodontist to do this. So we got to show them. And then why clear aligners? Honestly, I think clear aligners are a procedure that kind of complete the last piece of the puzzle to be like a comprehensive dentist. And so what I mean by that is like, dentists, dentists want to get into cosmetics, or they want to, ensure that their patients are good, right? Long term. So if you just think about it, like if someone's teeth are not in a healthy position and their forces are, misbalanced, and teeth that are not built to take forces are taking them, like everything's just going to break. And so, when you've got patients in their 30s or 40s, sure, everything looks decent. But I tell dentists, like, think about all the 65 to 70-year-old patients that you see whose teeth are completely worn down. They've got a bunch of issues, like, and now you have to actually go and do, invasive procedures to correct it. So it's like, don't you think that if they had an option 30 years ago to just align stuff, like that would be beneficial? And most of the time it's yeah. So one of it is like, it's for the patients. Like that's why aligners. The second is, dude, from a practice builder, it's nuts. Like you give these plastic trays to a patient, they go home, and then for the next 8 months, they are taking this out at every meal. So there's like this plastic with like, some saliva, like a string of saliva coming out at every meal. So think about from a marketing perspective, how amazing that is. Because every single human being that they have a meal with whether it's a family member, a coworker, a friend, the next thing that person's going to say is like, oh, like, what are you doing? Like, what is that? Like, oh, I'm doing Invisalign. It's like, oh, who are you doing it with? Oh, I'm doing it with I'm doing it with Dr. Patel. It's like, oh, wow. Like, how is it going? It's going great. You should go do it. What do you know? There's a referral, right? And it's like, it builds in the marketing when they're not even, in the practice. So it's during treatment. And then after, obviously, that's like a lifelong referral. But then it actually, what I saw is it opened up these patients to more dentistry. So the fact that my patients were in tune with their mouth, now they wanted whitening. Now they wanted some, cosmetic bonding and stuff like that. So it's like, it's kind of like aligners are like the gateway to more fun dentistry. But at the very baseline, it's just really good from an oral health perspective.
Yeah, I like that conceptually. Like it's it will help organically grow your business in ways that maybe you didn't expect. So like and I'm gonna put some words in your mouth and then maybe let you speak more on this, kind of like what are the bare minimums to get started is gonna be my question. But once you get rolling, that totally makes sense that you're gonna get way more organic referrals from your customers commenting about, hey, you gotta go see, Dr. Patel to get your clear aligners done. Which will just, decrease the amount of money you have to spend in marketing to get the new patients. I'm assuming kind of out of the gates to get started, you're going to have to lean into some marketing spend to get some of these starts going, I would assume. So kind of talk through, what does it take to get going? Or maybe not. Maybe to your point, there's demand within a patient base with adults. And if you just start talking about it, maybe you don't have to spend money. So talk through like, what do you do to even get started? Maybe even just mention like what equipment you might need, what relationship might you need with a supplier, in order to even get going with clear aligners?
Yeah. So first thing is like decide which brand you're going to use, right? There's a bunch out there: Invisalign, Sure Smile, Clear Correct, Ortho Effects, Candid. There's a bunch. So first thing is like do your research, talk to people, watch videos, talk to the reps, figure out which brand you want to use. Then the next thing is you're going to want to pair it with a scanner. You don't necessarily need a scanner to start. However, if you actually want to do this the right way and you really want for this to be a profitable, profitable part of the business, you need a scanner at some point. So first pick a brand, then at least have in your mind, like, all right, at some point I'm going to need a scanner. Then I say, get some baseline education. Just get the education so you can understand the core principles and what you need to do. From there, you don't need to spend any more money. Start talking to patients, start getting this going. And when you're selecting your education, make sure it's actionable. Like, you don't need like a library of material. Like, you need just like the core stuff to get the ball rolling. Start acting on that. And then what that allows for you to do is it allows for you to get the reps in yourself, but also with your team. Because if you start introducing this procedure that's like $5,000, it's probably one of the most expensive things you offer. You're going to need your team to get better at communicating, right? At that. And maybe you already have a phenomenal team that can do it, but most don't. And that's okay. Because if you're practicing on your existing patients, like the bar, like the threshold for performance is not, it's not that high, because you've already got this inherent trust with these patients. So like, if it's a little clunky in the beginning, it's not a big deal. But that allows you guys to get the reps in. Now you've got this internal system built out. Then I always recommend docs wait about 10 to 12 months before they start investing in marketing. Because as you know, anytime you do marketing, anytime you spend for marketing, you are just going to amplify whatever you're currently doing in your business. So if you've got a ridiculously good, high converting case acceptance, arm in your business, whether it's for implants or aligners or something, if you go throw marketing dollars at it, you're going to blow that up. The exact opposite is true. If you can't convert cases and you go throw a bunch of marketing dollars at it, you're just going to literally light your money on fire, because you're going to get all these patients in, and then you're not going to be able to convert them. And then you're going to look at the marketing company and being like, what the heck? Like, these patients aren't good patients. And they're going to look at you and be like, what are you talking about? Like, you guys don't know how to convert. So that's like a whole nother conversation. But yeah,
which I'll just throw out there, if anyone's listening thinking like, I actually like don't know for sure what case acceptance is, that's one thing that dental intelligence will do, like no cost. Like, you don't have to buy anything. They'll do what's called a snapshot, and they'll just review with you like, hey, here's your exact clinic flow. Like, how often when I do an exam, how often do I diagnose, and what kind of procedures am I diagnosing? And then what's my patient case acceptance? So like, how often do I get patients to say yes to at least something? Like, I present a whole treatment plan. Do they say yes to at least something? And then we also look at, of the total dollars I'm presenting, like how good am I at converting to completion within the first 6 or 12 months. So that's something we can totally help out with if you're sitting there thinking like, okay, like I would love to get an idea of if I'm gonna throw, I don't want to burn my money, like Dr. Patel said. That's something we can totally help.
we were actually using dental intel at the group that I was at, and it was super helpful to be able to see the numbers, right? It's like, cool, how much am I treatment planning? How much is being converted? Like, where's the opportunity? And then and there's a bunch of cool features. I like the follow-up feature too, where it's like, if there's patients who haven't accepted treatment, like there's a way to contact them. Yeah, there's a bunch of really cool stuff that you guys have.
Yeah, you just made me want to like dive into like a nitty-gritty conversation around how do you think around case acceptance with clear liners, but I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there yet, because I've got a different one that's like right in this same train of thoughts. We were talking about, like marketing and getting the ball rolling if you're getting started with aligners. And as you were talking, you mentioned earlier, like there's no better marketing than like a patient taking that tray out when they're talking with friends, or even, people will notice, like if you're close with someone and you start talking with them, like you'll notice, oh wow, like they've got something on their teeth, and I think most people are aware, like that's a clear liner that they've got on, and so then it's pretty natural to ask about it. So what are your thoughts, Dr. Patel, as you're getting going? You want to get some cases started. You could present to just patients. What are your thoughts about offering maybe, like, I don't know if it's like 1 or 2 team members where you're like, hey, I'm just gonna like eat the cost, but knowing that those team members, an assistant or a hygienist, if they want to do just some like, because it's probably going to be minor with those team members, they're very like teeth conscious anyway. But my wife's a hygienist, and she just had clear aligners a couple years ago because she just wanted some refinements. Her teeth got a little bit, off, and she just wanted to fix some of her occlusion. So if you have a team member wearing the aligners, I can imagine that also brings up lots of organic conversations, and they can say, oh yeah, I'm doing it right now. Dr. Patel's doing it for me. That makes it feel more natural. What are your thoughts on starting there?
100%, 100%. That's a great way to get started. That's super common with doctors, is they will start with a team member or two. And to your point, yeah, it's an organic conversation, right? Because you go in, you diagnose, now all of a sudden they look and they're like, yeah, like I'm doing it. And then
I'm
they can, and then when the doctor leaves the room, they can have like this very open and honest conversation.
yeah.
And yeah, we had a couple team members that went through it, and it's definitely a boost for sure. That's a great way to start too.
Seems like a pretty like sensible way to start getting exposure. And isn't like as a doctor, I just meet so many doctors that like they don't want to be pushy, maybe
Yeah.
maybe to a fault to some extent, but that's like a pretty non-pushy way to get going, like encourages your team members, they'll start having conversations just more naturally to get to you. So what would be a good goal if I'm gonna get started with this to like make it worth my time? I've got to buy a scanner. I'm probably gonna have to pay for some courses. Like I'm sure there's free content out there, like I mentioned, but I'm probably gonna have to pay if I want to like really make sure I've got like my wits about me for the whole thing. Um, what would be a good goal to make sure that like the investment in getting started with clear liners is actually worth it? Like what should I kind of try to do as a general dentist?
You're talking about like getting
How
like
many starts? Yeah, how many starts should I try to shoot for once I get the ball rolling?
yeah, so my thing is like once, like let's say you're investing in a course, you want to be able to get an ROI from that course to where you're at minimum making your money back on it, right? Um and that's kind of the philosophy where it is. It's like that should pay for itself, but then tenfold. But like I would say to start, like starting off with 3 cases a month is very doable.
Cool.
And that's what 3 cases, about 15K. So like as long as the course is less than that, you're
Yeah,
good.
in the
And
first month.
most
And then can you say like if I need to get 3 starts done, what is like do you have I actually don't have a pulse on this. I want to go look now. Do you have a pulse on like, hey, a doctor who's really good at presenting clear liners, how many cases do they need to present to get 3 starts versus maybe a doctor who's kind of average? Do you have a pulse on that?
Yeah, so it's a
Is it 10
scale.
or
I don't have like an exact number, but just to kind
yeah.
of showcase what that looks like. So if you think about it in the beginning and you've never done a case and you've got this patient population that you've had um, for a little bit, you're going to start talking about something that they've never been diagnosed with.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, I look at it as like, don't think you're going to convert everybody. What it is you're planting seeds.
Yeah,
Some
because they
of
might
the
convert in a couple of appointments. Yeah.
Exactly, in 6 to 12 months. And so all the initial conversation, it's just you're planting seeds, like have the farmer mentality where I'm planting these seeds. The soil is great and like this thing is going to shoot right up and this is going to be awesome. Those are going to be some of those initial starts. But
Yeah.
just know and don't get discouraged where it's not that they're saying no, they're just saying not right now, right?
A lot of people they just want to kind of financially plan for it. They're like,
That's
okay, it's
it.
gonna be 5, 6 grand. Cool. Well, maybe I'll wait till like next April when I get my tax refund, maybe save up a little bit, and then we're gonna be rocking and rolling. So that's a really good point. Just start planting those seeds with all the patients.
Yeah, but like from a goal, I say like shoot for 3 to start. Like that is very reasonable. And what that does is that will ensure that you're having the volume of conversation. Now, over time, what happens is it's kind of that mentality where it's like the person who talks about it more is just going to have they're just going to convert
Yeah.
more patients.
Like with anything,
Period.
like you swing a bat at a baseball enough times, like if you do it way more than the next person, you're gonna hit the ball more often. So
That's it. That's it. And so what it is it's like the whole like awareness phase. Like for a lot of your patients, you just need to bring awareness to this issue.
mhm.
Then obviously, you give them the information they need and you can showcase with the scanner. If you don't have a scanner, I recommend just use like a patient mirror, have them bite on articulating paper, and then just give them the mirror and show them the blue marks on their teeth and just be like, hey, you see those like heavy blue marks on the front teeth? Like that's where your teeth are colliding. They're crashing into each other. Over time, this is going to wear them down. It's primarily because they're not in a healthy position. So if you'd like to get them in a healthy position, we can do that. That's kind of a very easy way to get the conversation going. But yeah, a lot of it is planting those seeds and staying consistent, right? Making sure that at the 6 month appointment you talk about it again, right? If you treatment planned it and it's there whenever you guys are doing your morning huddles, that should pop up like, hey, we treatment planned this on this patient. Get in there, talk to them. Hey, we discussed this last time. where's your head at? What are your, are there any issues? Oh, you know what? I actually totally forgot to talk to my spouse, but you know what? Let's just do it. I know I need it. I want to get it done. Like the number of times that happens, it's wild. And so it's like, I know I didn't give you like a direct answer, but in terms of, average and really good, it comes down to the consistency. Like, because you could have a doctor that is like not the best communicator, but if they are showcasing with a scan, just highlighting the couple issues that the patient has and then providing it as a solution, they're going to convert, because at that point it's just a matter of time.
Well, I'll share this. The average dentist in the US, if they present $10,000 of treatment, gets about 36% of that treatment completed over the next 12 months. So, about a third. So I would assume
Yeah.
that average, probably clear aligners probably jumps into that same category. So, if you're going to present 10 cases, a month, generally speaking, that should average out to about three. And then if you get really good, the top performing dentists are doing, more like 60 to 64% of the dollars they're presenting are getting done. So
Mm.
start to do the math where it's like,
I
man,
would also, so
get
I
six
would also,
starts instead of three starts from presenting to the same number of patients over time, like that's going to have a big impact for sure.
I would also say with those numbers, because in my head, I was going to say like about 30 to 40% as like a
Yeah.
baseline. But
Yeah.
those ones that are in the 60 to 70%, it's also probably because they are now including in marketing, right? So they're driving in patients that are already desiring the treatment
Yep.
versus somebody that's like not even aware. And so
Yeah.
that naturally your numbers are going to go up. But you don't need a 70% start, like a 70% acceptance rate right off the bat,
No.
because if you do that, you and your team are going to probably get very overwhelmed. And so yeah, I think that's what it is, because like on the marketing side, like you put out you run like a meta ad on like, hey, have you ever had braces and you stopped wearing your retainer and your teeth moved? These are the things that can happen. Come on in, we'll give you a free consult, and then we'll talk through some options. Like, guess what? You're going to attract a bunch of relapse easy cases, and those
Yep.
patients want it. So when I just show them and I say, hey, you could do this, what do you think they're going to say? Like, most of them are going to move forward.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Now, I want to wrap up on this topic. So, I think it's pretty obvious that financially aligners can be a really exciting thing for a practice. It can give you way more flexibility on schedule, on lifestyle. Like you can get more dollars of dentistry done without having to feel like I'm like cramming my schedule chock full and jumping from exam to exam and from filling to filling. So I get it like experientially that way. But will you talk a little bit to just like the mindset shift? I think you had mentioned to me that you were pretty burned out after a couple of years of dentistry, and starting to do the clear aligners really helped you to like enjoy the profession more. So can you talk about that a little bit as we kind of finish up?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is when you go from being like reactive and drilling, filling, and just kind of looking at decay and trying to just solve for that. I don't know, like it really just wore down on me. Like I felt like, I was putting a lot of effort into my work, and I was getting, some satisfaction. It's not like there was no satisfaction, because I knew that, I was helping them. But um honestly, it was just like you start to look around and you're just like, this is a lot of work and effort that I'm putting in. And like, I'm not really, like, the patient barely cares. Like, they barely care. Like, to them, it's like, oh, it's just a filling. And I'm like, dude, like, my isolation was on point. Like, I got everything going. Like, you're not going to have any sensitivity. Like, it's all those little things that we kind of hyper focus on. And
Yeah.
then it's like $180. So it's like, what the heck? So
Yeah.
that started to kind of get old. And then yeah, with the liners and the shift for me, I think it was the fact that I was able to be part of a transformation.
Yeah.
um I think a lot of dentists got into dentistry for that, uh, cosmetically driven, but I think at the end of the day, it's that impact piece. You're able to guide your patient into this thing, and where it really hit is when I actually had a patient go through, um and then afterwards they were like, hey, I'm actually flossing now more than ever. I'm
Hmm.
like, what? And they're like, yeah. They're like, because I had to take my trays out every time I ate, and I brushed my floss used to rip. And so they're like, because my teeth were so close together, my floss would break. And so I would just not floss because it was so annoying. But now it's actually easy to floss. And so that was like the light bulb. I'm like, oh my God, this is cool. Like patients are actually flossing and I don't have to like,
Yeah.
get my hygienist to hound them for it. It was cool. So I think like, yeah, it comes full circle where I think for me, right, like I said, like what got me in was seeing the time, money, and fulfillment piece that my uncle had rarely with this procedure being the driver where, as my because I was making more money. And then the fulfillment piece of literally just being a part of patients' journeys and being able to do a really cool procedure. I think you kind of package all that up and yeah, that's what really hit home for me and it got me excited. And so now I'm trying to help other dentists experience that.
Yeah, I wanted you to hit that. That's so cool, man. I think I wanted you to hit that because there are so many dentists that get, 5 years in, 10 years in, 15 years into their career, and then they kind of have that like that moment where they're like, crap, dude, am I really gonna do this for another 20 or for another 30 years? Like, or can I do this? And so I just think it's cool hearing you talk through just the community it creates, like just knowing like you're right. No one, there's not a patient that finishes getting a filling and goes into work or goes home and they're like, dude, you gotta go see Dr. Patel. He just crushed this filling. Like that doesn't happen. But you help a patient with a clear aligner case, and all of a sudden they've got this new sense of confidence about their smile. Yeah, dude, and they tell people, and it creates a sense
Yeah.
of community in a way that I can just imagine it adds a new layer of fulfillment into a career that's really exciting. So I want to make sure folks hear that. Well, I know we're up on time. So Dr. Patel, I end with the same question with every guest, and that is, what does growth in dentistry mean to you? The podcast is called the Growth in Dentistry Podcast. So I just like to hear every guest's answer to that. What does growth in dentistry mean to you?
That's a great question. So growth in dentistry means to me having an open mind to new things and taking action on everything that is aligned with your mission.
Hmm. Simple. That was so good.
There we go.
I love
I'm
it.
glad you liked it.
I love
I
it.
always get nervous whenever podcasts like, oh, we asked this question. I'm like, oh man, what is this
Yeah, I
question?
thought it was just on the spot. No, that was perfect. And then for listeners that might want to get in touch with you, I'll just comment too. I'll throw this website in his website in the show notes. So clearalineradvisor.co, right? So not
Correct.
.co. So
CO.
clearalineradvisor.co. I'll throw that in the show notes. So if you guys just want to click on it, you're driving, don't have time to like write that down. I'll throw that down there. How else can they get in touch with you? You mentioned you've got a YouTube channel. Obviously, you're on
Yeah.
media as well.
Yeah, YouTube, Instagram, and I just hopped on LinkedIn a couple months ago, which
Oh,
I was anti LinkedIn for a while. I just never used it as a dentist, but it's been great. It's been awesome. That's how I got connected with Ashley. But yeah, Instagram handle is dr.avi and YouTube channel also is Dr. Avi. Um, I monitor all my stuff. Like there's not people see like they'll see like my followers and they'll be so shocked that I actually respond. I'm like, dude, I'm a normal person. I'm
yeah.
also addicted to Instagram. Like I'm on here. So yeah, just shoot me a message there. All of our resources, free things if you want to get started with trainings, those are on the website. And then for those of you that are ready to kind of go to the next level, we've got in-person and online stuff to help. But yeah, thanks for having me, man. This was awesome.
Yeah, thanks for joining. I think this will be really fun for folks to start wrapping their mind around, how do I really get clear aligners going in my practice? And anyway, thank you so much. So fun to hear kind of conceptually how it works, how it can impact a career. And you're just a cool person. So great to chat.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. This is awesome.
Okay, and to listeners, thank you again for joining us. This has been another episode of the Growth in Dentistry podcast. My name's Steve Jensen, a fellow data nerd. Keep growing, and we'll talk soon.